Hey guys, it's Q&A Tuesday. Remember the last What's on My Desk where I talked about history of Audemars Piguet, my favorite brand, and I showed you a bunch of iconic things. One of the watches I mentioned when I was going through their achievements is the first automatic tourbillon. Literally, as I finished taping this video, I look at one of my WhatsApp groups where it's a dealer chat where one of the dealers posts his inventory, and he posted this guy. Here it is, boys and girls. First automatic tourbillon from Audemars Piguet. Extremely slim watch, very unusually shaped. For an AP, everything about it. It's got a butterfly buckle, and all it's orange. Even the strap is original to this watch. So the minute I saw that posted, and as I literally just finished talking about it, it must have been a sign. So I bought this particular watch. I think it's cool as all hell. It's a piece of history. Yeah, I might like my original Royal Oaks, but I love this watch just as much. Anyway, on to some questions from freaking crazy 6932. 6932. Freaking crazy 6932. That's it. Hey Roman, what do you think about a G-Shock Mudmaster 2019? I have a Rolex BL and R, but I can't wear that to work due to issue of jealousies of people at work. I used to wear an Apple Watch and then a Fitbit, but then I got tired of them. Is G-Shock a good watch for daily and traveling all over the world? The Rolex is my weekend watch usually. Thanks, and I love your channel. I'm not going to give you advice on a G-Shock. Again, I'm not somebody that has in-depth knowledge on G-Shock watches. I know that G-Shock watches overall are great watches for everyday wear, for sports activities. They can take a beating, and as inexpensive as they get, you can. I don't know how much the Mudmaster 2019 is, but I know that as inexpensive as G-Shock can get, it's something you can beat the crap out of, wear it for a little bit, and then just kind of get rid of it and not be too sad about the loss. I do want to talk about the issue of jealousy of people at work, and I give you a quick story. My business partner, Arthur, he got into a program at a college called FLDP, which is Future Leadership Development Program for a tiny little company, Johnson & Johnson. Maybe you heard of them. He went through their program, and then he jumped positions from Johnson & Johnson to Campbell Soup. At the time, Arthur bought himself a Lexus. Arthur has a very similar story to me in terms of working from the age of 13. Only difference between me and Arthur was Arthur managed to save money, and I usually always spend all the money I make. Arthur got his first fancy watch at the age of 15. He bought a Bon Marché, which was pretty fancy at the time. It was like a $1,000 watch at the time, and it was a pretty big deal for a 15-year-old kid, right? By the time he was 17, he already had a Daytona. By the time he was 18, he had a Frank Miller Conquistador on a bracelet, which was at the time was a $12,000 watch. This kid worked hard for stuff, and he liked expensive toys from the very get-go. Lo and behold, by the time he got to Campbell Soup, he was driving the latest Lexus GS300. Remember those? When they first came out, it was like the hottest car ever. I mean, anybody that had that car was just great. So what he used to do is when he used to come to work at Campbell Soup, he used to park his car way in the back of the parking lot. He was afraid for his coworkers to see his fancy car because at the time, his boss and even his boss's boss didn't have as fancy of a car. And not to mention that he wouldn't wear fancy watches to work. I was quite the opposite. In my corporate career, my last job, landed me at Deutsche Bank. At the time I worked at Deutsche Bank, I was driving a BMW X5. Of course, outside of our corporate careers, we already had a couple of businesses on the side. At the time, we were in the cell phone business, which was pretty hot. That brought us additional income on top of our salary, so we were able to afford nicer cars, right? So every year, my boss used to throw a Christmas party at his house. I was running a little bit late. I had my black X5 with tinted windows. I, in turn, was wearing pants and a Versace shirt. Versace was hot at the time.
Versace? You can't spell Versace.
Versace. F-O-Sachi.
And as I'm pulling up, I realized that my boss is outside showing the other coworkers of my team his new car. He just picked up a Ford Escape, a brand new one. This is at the time, again, when they just came out. I mean, they've been around for a while now. And as he's showing the bells and whistles of his new Ford Escape, here I come pulling up in a brand new X5 BMW, music pumping. And let's just say everybody just got, the music stopped, and everybody just like, huh? Because here I am a subordinate, and all of a sudden, this is how I pulled up. That actually opened up a can of worms. I think from that going forward, I think my bonuses suffered because of that. And unfortunately, when you're at a workplace, when you're not working for yourself, you often find yourself in these type of situations where you have to hide your success. Just because you work under someone doesn't mean you can have more money than someone or be more well off than someone. You can do things on the side. You can certainly be a better saver. You can have less expenses. I was a single guy making 6 figures at Deutsche Bank, and I had not a worry in the world, with the exception of going out and spending money on myself. Right? Today it's a little bit different. I have a family to support, 3 children, college tuitions, etc. This is a really sticky situation to be in, and it happens all the time. And I talk to guys all the time about this, ones that are in the corporate world. Once I got out of the corporate world and opened up my own company, I decided right off the bat that I'm going to have a corporate structure without the bullshit or without the politics, as they like to call it. That's the popular buzzword. And that's what this is. This is politics in the workplace. And unfortunately, there isn't anything you can do about it. I tend to stick to being myself all the time. And if being myself at the time was me driving a X5 BMW and wearing Versace clothes and having a fancy watch on my wrist, where Arthur, who's a lot more conservative, was the guy that chose to go the other route. There's really no wrong way to go about it. But I did want to bring up that story just because I hate that. I really, really, really hate that. If any one of my employees tomorrow pulls into the parking lot in a brand new Ferrari, my thought process is not going to be, oh, I'm paying him too much, or this kid is loaded, what the hell, where did he get the money? The only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come out, I'm going to check out his new Ferrari, I'm going to tell him well done and congratulations, because that's a hell of a car. Of course, I'm not most people, and I'm not most corporate environments. And unfortunately, in today's day and age, for the most part, you're better off hiding a Rolex and indeed wearing that G-Shock Mudmaster. Maybe that will change someday, but human nature is very difficult to change, and jealousy is one of those things that I cannot stand. I'm a strong believer when it comes to men, per se. Maybe it's an old Russian thing, maybe it's a little sexist, but when it comes to men, I think 2 of the worst quality a man can possess is jealousy and gossip. If any guy out there gossips, or if any guy out there is jealous of another, to me it makes him less of a man, so to speak. It's just a bad quality for anyone to have, really. Not just men, but that's just one of my things. And that's why I was always on the side of not shying away from who I am, of what I have. And if somebody decides to be jealous, then, oh well, screw you, I am who I am. I'm not the guy to go out there and flaunt it or throw it in anybody's face. But if I want to come to work and wear my Rolex, I will come to work and wear my Rolex. Hope that somewhat touches upon your question. I really just wanted to get into that story real quick. Anyway, Roman, love your channel. Why do watch companies keep making certain dogs that they know that the ADs have a hard time selling and usually end up getting dumped onto the gray market? For example, many of the Aquaterras and Datejust and Air Kings. Does this not dilute the brand? Well, that's actually a great question, and I'm not going to make it Rolex specific. I'm going to make it general across all the brands. Everybody that just heard that question would probably say, well, yeah, why? Why not just make the winners? Well, you have to understand this answer is really, really simple. In order to have a winner, you have to have the underdogs, okay? You have to have a selection, per se. No watch company out there gets out and makes one watch, and it's automatically a winner. In order to become a winner, you have to have history. You have to have production history. You have to produce an X amount of different models, different lines, a lot of different things. Experiment until you get to that one stainless steel Daytona or a blue dial Skydweller, who would be deemed the winner, let's say, in the Rolex world. Audemars Piguet made a lot of jewels, made a lot of millionaires. They made a lot of Edward Piguets, but the Rolex wasn't always a winner. The offshore wasn't always a winner. I've sold offshores as low as $6,500 back in the day, but they're out popular now. So the biggest reason is the following. Again, in order to have a winner, you have to have the underdog. So you have to create a slew of products over time. That's number one. Number two, trends change. And what's a dog today can be a winner tomorrow and vice versa. And number three, you have to think of it this way. Let's take Rolex, for example, right? Obviously, Air Kings are not exactly the biggest winners, right? Datejust actually not so bad. But let's take small Datejust, the 36 millimeters, or the lady size, the 27 or 28 millimeters, that are not exactly the biggest winners due to today's trends. But they still sell. And what a smart company does, they will control for the production of their watch based on the demand that they know of. And Rolex is a genius when it comes to that. While making hundreds of thousands of watches, they're able to control their productions to a point where pretty much everything is somewhat in demand to an extent. So yes, Air Kings are not exactly in the biggest demands versus, let's say, the Hulk or the Batman or the Pepsi GMT. But nevertheless, they still sell. So what they do is they do produce less of them. And again, at the end of the day, when I walk into a Rolex boutique, I don't want to see 3 watches. I don't want to see the 3 winners. I want to see a selection. And that's what they do. They create a humongous selection out of which you're going to have your winners and out of which you're going to have your underdogs or dogs, as you'd like to call them. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And no company out there is ever going to scale down to the production of only the popular pieces. Because if Audemars Piguet right now scaled down to just the Royal Oak and stainless steel, what kind of money are they making, number one? And number two, what kind of a company would that be? You know what I mean? It's in order to create a market, you have to have the goods to create the market. You have to have diversity. You have to have a bunch of different models, a bunch of different lines, and then the winners are identified. And they're not really identified by the company. They're identified by the consumer. The company just produces based on demand. And if certain models are more demand, they'll make more. If sometimes they'll make less to create bigger hype. And if some models are not in high demand, they'll make less of them, but that's just the way it's going to go, and it's going to continue like that forever. Next question is from one of my female followers, Ada Blaine. I've answered her question before. Glad to have you here, because this is mostly a boys club, so it's actually very nice to see a female follower with a great question. Roman, I have a question that's been on my mind for a while now. How is it that everybody can rip off Rolex and get away with it? Did Rolex not have the proper trademarks set in place, or did they simply fail to pursue the copycats? When someone tried to rip off AP, they sued the mofos in an instant, but there are Rolex lookalikes everywhere. It kind of pisses me off. I can at least understand someone wanting to get a fake Rolex, but I'll never understand the person aching for a Timex Rolex Pepsi. I mean, WTF. At least the person with a fake Rolex knows it's all about the brand that started it. I know that brands often get inspired by others, but some of this stuff seems to have gotten out of hand, which leads me to my next question. Is everything that Rolex is known for actually original to Rolex? I feel like those details matter. Everybody bites off of each other. And unfortunately, that cannot be protected by trademarks. The only thing that Rolex can protect is their logo, which is the crown. They can protect their name, which is Rolex. They can protect the names of their lines or the names of their models, such as Submariner, right? They can protect those things that are actually indeed trademarked, but you cannot trademark the look of a watch. When Timex decided to do a Pepsi watch, that's them jumping on the bandwagon of the fact that GMT Pepsis are hot. And they're trying to mimic it at less of a price, right? And for those that can appreciate Rolex but can't afford a Rolex, they can go with a Timex that sort of looks like the Rolex. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, obviously, copies are copies, and Rolex can only fight those so much, but Rolex is probably the #1 copy brand when it comes to fakes. You guys remember my Hong Kong videos when I was browsing the street, and literally every other block there was a guy coming up offering me copy watches, copy Rolex? Remember that?
Copy Rolex, copy handbag, copy watch.
The watch is copy, Rolex copy my shop.
No, it's not that good. Rolex cannot go out after these companies that make it look alike. What Rolex does have that other companies that have that sort of cheaper line, two-door, that looks like Rolex, that's made by Rolex. That was a smart move on their part, but even those are becoming somewhat unaffordable as well. You know, it's getting up there in price. Is everything Rolex known for original to Rolex? There's a controversy out there that the Oyster Perpetual movement was originally not made by Rolex. It was originally created by a company called Perle. I'm not going to make that a fact. I'm just saying, I'm just going to call it hearsay. When Rolex was coming up in the world, again, they took bits and pieces of other watches, companies that may no longer be in existence, models that some companies made and weren't successful with. Everybody in the watch industry tends to follow suit. Look at the car industry. It's very similar. Whether you're taking lower-end cars or higher-end cars, you can line up 10 different cars of the same price range, and you're going to see a lot of the same design aspects, a lot of the same features, and so on and so forth within each car. I think that if we got into a position where we started suing each other just because something looks like a product that we made, would spend more time in court than actually opening up companies and creating products. So no, Rolex will not sue the mofos, as you put it. They will only sue those mofos if they use any of the stuff that they actually physically trademark. Hope that answers your question, Ada. Oh, here's a good one. It's another Rolex question, but at least it's not about resale value. This question is from George Roman. Something that I don't really understand, too, is the following. So we say Rolex likes their clients, et cetera, but why does Rolex allow their IDs to sell their prime stock, i.e. sports model stainless steel that they receive, to dealers like you and all other dealers? Rolex knows exactly what's going on, and they're almost liking it playing out. Surely Rolex can stop this by not allowing their IDs to sell to anyone but a walk-in client. So there must be a reason behind this madness. Maybe Rolex is using you guys to see how far they can increase their product price-wise, as the market is paying up for the watches, and then what they do is limit the numbers, increase the price by 30-50%, and ADs will be on a short leash by Rolex to sell only to clients and public. By that point, the price will be in the total top end for the gray market. If it somehow gets there to actually play a role, really, your thoughts on this? Okay, that's easy enough. Rolex can stop this by not allowing their ADs to sell to anyone but a walk-in client. Rolex does not allow the ADs to sell to anyone but a walk-in client, okay? Rolex will take an authorized dealer's line should they find out that they're selling to gray market dealers. But Rolex dealers are smart. When they sell a watch to a gray market dealer, they immediately fill out the warranty card. They get a name, they get an address, they fill it out to someone's name. They remove all the stickers from the watch. So if the watch ends up on the internet tomorrow, it's used. Hey, I didn't sell it to this guy. I sold it to the guy that's on the warranty that I filled out and submitted to you at Rolex. What happens afterwards is not my issue. Just because these things are trading at double retail elsewhere, I did my job and I sold it to a retail client. And that's what every not just Rolex dealer does, that's what every other dealer does that puts stuff out on the gray market. And guess what? You can't blame them because they cannot move the amount of product that they used to be able to at a brick and mortar store. Today's the world of the internet and the gray market guys like us, and this is what they do. As far as Rolex using us to test the market, trust me, Rolex does not need us. This does not need me or any other gray market dealer to test at the market. They know their market, and there's no way in hell are they going to increase their prices 30 to 50% and cut down production. That's never going to happen. Rolex is a numbers company. They put out a lot of watches, and being number one, they're going to continue riding being the number one and produce as many watches as the market will take and continue selling them at somewhat reasonable prices due to current market conditions as well as the value of money or inflation per se. So no, ADs are not allowed to sell to us. Rolex does not know that they sell. They do know, but they know that these dealers do it in such a way that they can never be caught. And dealers do get caught. They get caught every day. Lines get taken away from them. I've seen this happen numerous times to authorized dealers. I've never been the cause of that because when you have a relationship, when somebody's ADs that have relationships, they know that I will never burn them. So if I'm ordering a particular watch, like a high-profile piece from any brand from them, I'm going to ensure it's not going to another dealer. I'm going to put it on a wrist of a client that I know for a fact is a client. There are shoppers out there. There are companies out there that legit have shoppers out there that actually buy watches online to try to catch authorized dealers. How do they do it? It's very simple. Let's pick Hublot, for example. Hublot knows what stock each particular dealer has of theirs, right? And they'll go and they'll, on my website, and request a watch that they know no authorized dealer in the U.S. has in stock. I'll in turn start calling around. I'll find that watch. A couple of dealers will call the company asking for that particular watch, and right off the bat, they're going to know. They'll sell that watch to some authorized dealer. That authorized dealer will sell it to me. They'll buy it, and they'll go back to the authorized dealer and say, hey, you just sold this watch to Luxury Bazaar. That has happened before. Of course, there's always some kind of a cockamamie excuse that the authorized dealers can come up with. And at the end of the day, they haven't been taking lines away lately because lately, you know, not every brand is doing so hot. Yes, brands like Rolex, like AP, like Richard Mille, they're looking for excuses to take away the line. Everybody else right now is happy to make a sale. So the shopping kind of have stopped. I have a list of shoppers, literally, and I have a database that has a list of every single shopper from Richmond Group, from Swatch Group, from many other brands that have tried to buy from us before, and we often catch on to that. We quickly cancel the sale or say something like we can't get it, and so on and so forth. Hope this somewhat answers your question, George. I take another quick one from Joel Nolander. Great video, Roman, thank you. A question, how much do daily wear affect the service period? And is it bad to use the same mechanical watch every day in and day out without it stopping? Thanks, keep up the good work, and thank you, Ian. Easy answer. Your watch is meant to be worn every day. There's really nothing out there that will tell you, oh, well, if you wear your watch every other day, it will affect the service period. Absolutely not. If your watch is to be serviced every 5 to 7 years as recommended, it doesn't matter if you wear it every day, once a week, or every other day. What I will tell you is that if you don't wear your watches for a prolonged period of time, and they're not running for a prolonged period of time, that will actually affect them more than them running. It's a machine, it's an oiled machine, literally, it needs to run. So no, it doesn't matter how often or not often you wear your watch, without stopping or not stopping, it will not wear that watch down any further unless you're somebody that beats their watches up, unless you live a very active lifestyle where you're always walking around and moving and have a chance to drop the watch, to hit it with something. Then yes, your watch can be affected, but most likely it'll be affected on the cosmetic end more than on the mechanical end, unless you literally drop a dumbbell on it, obviously. Hope that answers your question, Joel. Guys, that's it for me for today. As always, like, share, subscribe, comment any questions below, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday.